This is the World Repair Shop, and I'm Metta Spencer. And today we're going to visit Halifax. We have a friend, Kathrin Winkler, who's going to talk to us about the various kinds of activism that is going on in the maritime province of Canada. So, hello, Kathrin. How are you?
I am fine, and I just want to acknowledge that I am here in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship, with Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725, and there was no surrender. I'm on stolen land.
You might be too. You reminded us of that. That is not something people normally say when we get together on a talk show. So it's a good thing to have that happen now. Now I am hearing squawking going on, which means that my sound is wrong. If you have something on you or Adam, because I'm hearing a background squawk. Kathrin, do you have any radio or anything else on in your area?
I have earphones plugged in, so you wouldn't be getting any background sound from me.
Okay, we have to, fortunately, nobody will be seeing this. I've said it for...
I think Adam is unmuted. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Adam, you are not... You are muted. You are muted.
You just muted.
So, so I don't get what's causing it. Adam, can you figure it out? Because I think we ought to, this is exactly why we're doing it, to make sure that we figure things like this out in advance.
Metta, is the YouTube window?
Clear trans people.
It sounds like it might be the YouTube window in the background. Did you manage to click the mute button on that? Because this happened briefly before.
It's called, it's muted, and I turned the sound down. So it is not coming from my personal window on YouTube. Let's see. Is there anything else I have open? There's nothing. What is this? Nothing open. Let's see.
You're certain the YouTube window is muted?
Can you hear it? No, I'm not hearing it.
I can hear it a bit in the background.
It doesn't sound like a repetition of my voice or any of our voices. It sounds like somebody else. There's one person watching now. Who could be watching? Nobody could be watching because it's unlisted.
Well, I have to adjust it to be unlisted, Metta, because for some reason the settings changed and it's gone from private unlisted to public. So what I will do is I could change that back to unlisted now. I can hear the echo as well.
No, it's not an echo. It's real. It's like somebody in the next room or something that is definitely doesn't sound like us.
What if you turn your speaker down just slightly?
It's that not too high. This is not acceptable. This is not going to work. We have to fix this. And I haven't a clue what's causing it, except that I'm not hearing it at the moment, but I will again. Talk, 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 talk. I'm not hearing it now. No, I hear something. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to unplug my microphone. And when I muted myself, it seemed to stop. So let me mute myself again.
Well, if you mute yourself, that obviously I won't be able to hear you. Speak with the mute on. I don't think I can hear you, but say something.
With the mute on, Metta?
Well, whatever you're doing now. Okay, keep talking, because I'm not hearing the noise.
So I'm getting some feedback when you're talking. But okay, so now I'm speaking, and I'm wondering if you're hearing the noise still, or what's
Are
happening.
you on YouTube?
I'm on Zoom.
You don't have YouTube open, do you?
Let me check. You know what? How about I log out and log back in?
Okay, but if you're on YouTube, that would maybe cause something.
I'm not.
No. Okay. Well, there's a little squawking. Try it. Try logging off, and then come back in, and let's see if that makes a difference.
Can you still hear the echo?
Well, not as much at the moment. I'm not hearing it, but I did hear it 20 seconds ago. Okay, so she's gone now. She's going to start over again. That. This. Okay. No.
I'm back.
Okay. Good. Now, are you muted? It says to ask you to unmute, but now.
There's an audio issue with you now.
Pardon, Adam?
There's an audio issue with you. It's going off.
I'm still hearing the squawk. I'm still hearing that squawking sound.
I'm not logged into anything else. I'm just on Zoom with you both.
Well, this is a big problem. I mean, not that I care exactly today, because really nobody's going to know, but I have to be able to solve exactly this kind of problem. And let's see, there is nothing that I have open that could be doing this. I'm going to quit Excel. I'm going to quit things that Excel can't do that. Nothing can do that. I'll quit Word, but that certainly Word is not doing it. Nothing's doing it. Nothing could do that. Adam, do you have a clue? Do you have any? It's squawking.
This has happened before in two different circumstances. One was when you had YouTube open in the background playing with a delay. This does not seem to be that. The other is when your speakers are set too loud and too close to the microphone. And that could be causing this type of distortion because the microphone is picking up what's broadcasting from the speaker with that 1 or 2 second delay rather than the 20-second delay from YouTube. How close is the Yeti microphone?
Nothing has changed whatsoever about my speakers. Nothing.
How loud is the speaker set right now?
They're set slightly below normal.
Okay.
You remember yesterday this thing about how it said it was still live? Could that still be happening and we somehow be live?
It's not saying at all that you're live right now. I'm logged onto your YouTube channel in the background to do kind of the troubleshooting when we're trying to start this video. It does not say at all that you are presently live, even though it says live on YouTube at the top. So that's quite strange to me. Now I am logging into a different section. Now let's see if it appears on the studio. Yes, so it now says that we are live on the studio. It is unlisted.
Okay, I'm not hearing it, but I don't know what that means. All right. Kathrin is muted. That may be what it means. Kathrin, unmute yourself. Now let's see if that makes a difference. Okay. Now, we don't hear anything, but okay.
Well, when I'm talking, is there any problem?
No, you sound normal. Everything sounds okay at the moment. All right. I don't know that this is going to hold up, but let's go ahead. Let's pretend we're now just getting started on this little conversation. All right. Very good. So how are things in Halifax, Kathrin? And thank you, by the way, for your comments, your acknowledgement of the, would you say the name of that Indigenous population? Mi'kmaq?
The Mi'kmaq? Mi'kmaq?
Mi'kmaq?
Mi'kmaq, I believe, but I think could.
Mi'kmaq.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard it pronounced. I just see it written. And I don't know.
There's some wonderful women who are very engaged in water protection and have been relentlessly opposing a company called Alton Gas, and they've been in a film. There's Something in the Water that Ellen Page, who is now Elliot Page, produced. And it was at the film festival in Toronto, and it explores ideas of environmental racism.
What's in the water?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Some sort of chemical, or excuse me?
It is a film that tracks several sites in Nova Scotia where there is environmental pollution. Boat Harbor is one of them. Then up near Shelburne, there's a dump that has been put near the Black Nova Scotian community, has been there historically. They did not have a well. Ellen Page offered to pay for a well. The council refused because I can't remember the political reasons for it. But really, it's work by Ingrid, I have to think of her last name, Waldron, I'm sorry. Ingrid Waldron, Dr. Ingrid Waldron, who looked at where we place our pollution. It's not usually in the white person's backyard. It's very often in areas that are near indigenous lands, or in other communities that have.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. Where we place our what?
Any kind of pollution, like Boat Harbor was a company in that the paper company has polluted for years and years and years. So we not only have structures of systemic racism in our institutions, but also in how we affect people's health and lives consistently, and where we leave the residue of our capitalism and consumerism, which we're noted for.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, all these things tend to go together, but I hadn't heard it before.
It's a good film. It's a good film. I think it's even on Netflix. It really takes another lens, a more intersectional lens at looking at environmental devastation, because as in war, who's being affected? I mean, who are we planning to arm, and who are we planning to attack? It certainly isn't another white country. It's essentially the whole narratives that are now rising against creating an enemy, in my opinion, is not going to be someone who looks like me or you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Now, how many? This is the main Indigenous community in Nova Scotia. Is that right? The Mi'kmaq?
Yeah, and I'm not really qualified to speak on behalf of the Mi'kmaq, but I mentioned it because I did the territory acknowledgement.
No, because I'm just not sufficiently aware of the different communities that live, Indigenous groups that live in Canada. I should pay more attention to that. So,
Well,
anyway,
we haven't been educated, have we?
that's right. You know, the worst is I'm part Choctaw Indian, apparently. And of course, that is a tribe that was um, expelled from the South and sent to Oklahoma. And they call it the Trail of Tears. Apparently, it was a very beautiful thing. And I lived there my first 13 years in what turns out to have been the reservation of the Choctaw people. And I didn't even know it. And I did know that I was part Choctaw, but I never learned one thing about the history of their culture, not a thing. So,
And how have you felt about that as an adult? Have you been able to?
I still haven't done much. My brother and I went back to look at the little town that we grew up in, or that we were born in, about 3 years ago, and we visited the headquarters of the Choctaw people, which turns out to be in the building that was my mother's high school. I happened to recognize the building when we got there. This was a photo that I'd seen before. I knew it was my mother's school. And it had been a school for Indian girls. So somehow she'd been able to get into it at the time. And I don't know the rest of the story. But it's something I should pursue further.
It sure. Was today on that, I was mentioning that webinar on the past, on guilt rather, and there was one of the speakers talked about hearing a Indigenous leader saying that when the buffaloes were killed, when all the buffaloes ended, I think it was Crow, the heart of my people fell onto the ground and nothing else happened. And this intellectual, whose name I can't remember, responded. He was telling the story, and he said he heard this chief speak and it didn't register with him. And years later, he was walking, he's from Chicago, and suddenly this phrase came back to him. And I think he's a Freudian, so he spoke about the invited guest and how we respond to the invited guest. And so he decided to develop a relationship. It's a beautiful story. I mean, it was sort of the one I remember because all of these stories were very intellectual and academic, and I was trying to draw the threads. Anyway, and he started to develop a relationship with a crow, and it ended up that the loss of language, loss of culture, in terms of grieving, how do you grieve that, and when everything is taken away. And so he talked about eventually over years, they developed, there's an exhibit at the gallery in Chicago right now that uses artifacts that were taken from the crow, but also has, I think, 11 new artists who are now, he called them the warriors of the present, because that's how we can memorialize. And how do you memorialize loss? I'm taking a course right now, Metta, on it's called Confronting Fascism. So I was, Confronting Fascism at Dal. You know, when you're over 65, free courses.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I took Arabic 2 years ago because I'd spent 4 years in the Middle East and hadn't learned the alphabet. But it was, and I was curious. I thought maybe my brain just can't do it. Well, I learned the alphabet, but beyond that, it wasn't much.
Yeah, I sometimes can sound out Cyrillic alphabet. It really can make a huge difference, especially when it comes to Russian. I remember one time I was in Moscow. Well, the first 2 times I went to Moscow. The first time I didn't know how to sound out the letters, and then next time I went back, I'd learned how to sound them out. I still sometimes forget some of them, but I remember being in the largest bookstore in Moscow, and they had signs over the different sections history, philosophy, things like that. And I remember standing there and sounding it out to myself, reading these signs. And because there's an enormous overlap, the amount of borrowing from well, I guess Romance languages, I'm not sure, but Russian contains many foreign language roots. So I was able to get something like, I think 20 out of 22 of these signs, I was able to figure out what they referred to, just because they would say something like Historia instead of history or something like that. But then I went from Moscow to Stockholm and spent a lot of time. Of course, the street signs in Stockholm look like ours, except they're in Swedish. And I never was able to figure out a word in Sweden because the Swedes don't have any overlap. It doesn't look as if they borrowed a single term from Western Europe or from English. So, and of course, the same goes for Finland. You can't see any connection at all. But Russian, you can practically read Russian if you can sound it out, because there are about, probably out of every sentence, out of every 10 words, there'll be maybe 3 or 4 that, now I'm going to mute us.
And I just got a call too, but from my eye doctor.
The hour of phone calls.
I know, I didn't answer, and it's.
I put my phone slightly away from where I'm sitting, because otherwise I know it will notifications and stuff.
Okay, that was Kuzma Tarasov.
Oh.
In I guess Ottawa. Kuzma is. Do you know his name, Kathrin?
No, I don't.
He's a Doukhobor. And
oh yeah, Kuzma. I looked, actually, he has a blog, and I looked at his soup the other day. Unbelievable. I can't believe that this connect. Now that's what you call an uninvited guest. And
yeah, that's right. I didn't invite him to this, but I had left a message on his machine yesterday that I wanted to talk to him because I want to do something like this with him next week. I've never done a show about the Doukhobors, and I thought it's high time to get acquainted with the Doukhobor Canadians.
One of the steering committee members at the national level in Nova Scotia, Voice of Women for Peace. Her name is Hannah. I don't know her last name, but she's Doukhobor, and I'm sure she'd love to speak to you too.
Haddocken?
Pardon me?
Is it Hannah Haddocken?
Could be.
Mm-hmm. Hannah Haddocken is now the co-chair of the Voice of Women.
Yes.
You must know her. Yeah, when she lives someplace in BC, in the interior, which I had her on, or she was on the town hall.
Nice.
Yeah. That's
good for you. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Tell me about what's going on in Halifax or in Maritimes in general.
Well, something interesting happened. The convention center here has cost the city $11 million because of no bookings in the last year and all kinds of things. And at City Council, Lindell Smith, who is our counselor, and who also was able to put forward a motion against purchasing the armed police vehicle, which was then canceled. But Lindell Smith suggested at council that perhaps this could have been refitted, or part of it, to house the homeless in Nova Scotia, who in Halifax, which number under 1,000, I think maybe around 600, but I'm not 100% sure. And then someone on staff, a staff member, said no, there hadn't been any discussion of that because there would be health issues of having people use the facility if there were people who were from the street. It would just seem the most absurd reason, and really an example of old systems that are are based on this idea of a movement forward and progress if we go in this direction, and that we can do it autonomously. That kind of thinking compared to giving dignity and sharing and understanding that we're all interconnected, because if we don't get that message,
Mhm.
we'll be underwater here in Halifax with the art gallery that
An idea.
planned on the waterfront.
Oh, well, that's such an interesting idea. Were they thinking of putting, how would they give anybody privacy? You could
Oh, I think
inside the convention hall or something.
listen, Metta, I think where there's a will, there's a way, and any of that, and space is misused in those places. And if that were the will, that we have a huge space that the taxpayers are paying for,
Mhm, mhm.
and we have people who are suffering. And if we're not able to put those two together.
I belong to the Church of the Holy Trinity, which is right down at the Eaton Center. And around the church, there has been a tent city. Homeless people have maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 tents.
You'll know my nephew then. My nephew's name is Zach Schwarzentruber.
Oh, Zach?
Zach and Lay, his partner, is
there's a Zachary Grant.
Zachary Grant, that's him.
Oh, I have not met him because I haven't left my apartment in 8 months, but he gave the talk on Sunday. I attend church by Zoom, just as I'm doing right now. We have a meeting of the people, and we do everything that we would normally do in a regular worship service. But we have different people give homilies, and he gave, for the second time, he gave a talk because he's quite an amazing young man. He's really running wonderful programs for people at the church, or the homeless people, and other people who simply drop in. Not everybody is homeless because they come there for food. They provide meals every day, sandwiches at least, I don't know what else. And they have testing sometimes for COVID there. They have various kinds of health, provisions there, and consultation if you need advice or help, where to go for help. They're wonderful, and he's the main person there. So he's quite an amazing young man.
His mother is Paul's sister.
Who is Paul? Is your husband?
Yes.
Oh, well, congratulations.
I think you met Paul. When he was working on Gandhi. He did some publishing on Gandhi, and he may have had something in the Peace magazine. But anyway, Zach is a wonderful young man, and Lee, his partner, is a lovely, lovely woman, and I'm so happy that you know them.
Oh, yes. Well, he probably doesn't know me because I've been watching him on these talks, and he really he's doing an amazing amount of work. It's just astounding how many projects he can report on when we ask him to give a talk about what's going on. But the reason I mentioned this is that the issue going on right now at the church has to do with the fact that the city has announced, or did announce, I shouldn't say has because maybe they'll backtrack, but they announced that they were going to knock down all the tents. They were just going to go and destroy this, and it's because I think I don't even know whether the Eaton Center is open. I think maybe you can get in or maybe you can't, but certainly most of the businesses are not functioning very well. And I suppose they want it to look like a very swish, prosperous, elegant place, and having these people out in the backyard in their tents doesn't reflect very highly on the prestige of the Eaton Center.
So what is it going to take? What is it going to take all of us to realize that that's the old narrative, that being swishy and hiding.
Right. Well,
the
real point is that these people are not in shelters because they don't feel safe in shelters.
Right.
And they're right to not feel safe in shelters. They feel safer in the tents Now, I don't know whether they're right to feel safe there, because I understand there have been assaults that have taken place there. So it may not be, there may be real problems about sleeping out in the cold in a place where people can come along and be aggressive. But immediately after the church found out that this was going to happen, there's been a huge campaign to write to the mayor and write to the officer of health, city's officer of health, and so on, to protest and to say, you can't do this unless you provide individual housing for these people.
And then there's a community there. I mean, Zach was speaking about the strength of the community and how individuals have found their place in helping one another. And
that's right. And he spoke during this homily. He spoke about he talked about a couple of particular individuals who come there every day. One guy comes and plays a piano, and he played for us. We had a video showing him playing, or maybe he played live, I don't remember. And there's somebody else who does some other service, water, I think, providing water, right. And he shows up and does his job. Of course, he doesn't have a job. He does it as if it's his role, his duty to provide water and so on.
Reinvent the idea of job.
I was very touched by it. He was, he choked up as he talked about these two people and what it meant. I think one of them is yes, we did meet him. They showed him briefly. One of them is a guy who's dying. He's got some kind of cancer or something, and it's not curable. Whatever it is, he knows he's dying. But he comes there. He's feeling well enough to do his role. And he comes there every day and does some kind of service. Isn't that beautiful?
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
There has been other disputes. This is quite interesting to hear regarding the homeless encampment near the church. Regarding the church and the Eaton Center and dispute over space, I don't know if you heard there was a lawsuit a few years ago that the Eaton Center had dug under the church and the church started shifting. So there were big cracks in the walls that they had to repair and stuff like that. So that dispute over the outdoor space, I'm very curious to see how that kind of evolves in regards to the relation between the church, which has been there since 1847, and the Eaton Center, which has been there for a more recent period of time. Does Halifax have these homeless encampments as well? Because I've heard Toronto has them. They're all over Toronto right now, a lot of parks, and there's a lot of debate about what to do with them in regards to how can we assist the people living in these encampments and make sure they don't freeze to death in the winter and have access to facilities to stay healthy and safe and stuff like that. Whereas some people are against them and saying that these parks should be kept clear for public use. I heard Vancouver has a similar situation in Oppenheimer Park. I haven't heard so much about the east coast of Canada. Do you have similar encampments out east right now with the pandemic and even before that?
To be honest, I'm not an expert or aware of where there are encampments. And I've just encountered individuals. But we have a good history of not only relocating encampments, but destroying entire communities in the history of Africville. And there certainly is a lot of effort to bring this back into the living memory of those among us who close our eyes to the 400 years of slavery and racism. A friend of mine just emailed me. She moved to a street called Stair Street, I believe. And she wondered that was an unusual name for a street. And I can't find the email right now, but Mr. Stair was a slave owner, had a very negative history. I wanted to, I do have to go before 2:15. Were we scheduled for half an hour?
Yes, but we started so late that I thought we were going to go to almost 1:15. But we don't have to. Of course, it doesn't matter because nothing is going to be, nobody's going to see this anyway, but it has been very helpful because the last little while now, I have not heard that noise. So we've solved the problem, but I'm not pleased because I don't know how we solved it. And if it happens again, when I'm trying to really go public with this thing, I have no idea what to do. Do you, Adam?
Well, this has definitely been useful in trying to troubleshoot the process of getting the live stream started. It seems that today we didn't have that very pronounced, very loud echo from YouTube, but this kind of feedback issue, this distortion is a new problem. This is only the, I think, third or fourth time that we've tried this new software, and we're still getting the hang of it for doing the live broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the future, like, we could definitely probably streamline the process and maybe have some better ideas of what could be causing the issues. I haven't heard the sound that we heard at the start either in the past about 20, 25 minutes. I'm not sure what caused that at the start, so that's still a bit of a mystery to me. But if we hear it at the 4 p.m. call today, we'll know that it might be something that needs to be addressed again. I'm not certain if it's linked directly to YouTube or Zoom as to where the problem's originating.
In any case, I'll leave you with a thought. How's that? Do you know Judy Haven, Metta?
No.
Judy Haven is a member of Voice of Women for Peace, and she is an activist par excellence. She has started a group called Equity Watch that took the side of a firefighter, a woman who had to leave her job because of stress and abuse and harassment, and she has a blog. And I mean, I know that women have been affected by this pandemic, certainly differently than men. But what I didn't know is that women are now at the lowest level of workforce participation that they have been in 30 years. In 3 decades, women's unemployment.
Now, is that locally, just in Canada, or what? Where is that true? You know,
This is in, I believe this is in Canada, but it's these are statistics by Canadian economist Armin Yelnizyan.
Mm-hmm. I know
And
the name. Uh-huh.
and so she has been quoted to say, "No recovery without she-covery, no she-covery without childcare," which has been promised since the 70s, when the Royal Commission on the Status of Women under the Liberal government recommended it for the first time. So 1970, and it's a very interesting blog, and it's something that if we don't look at everything we do with a gendered lens, then we'll continue in this imbalance, which...
Do you know, Adam, will you take down whatever the link is?
I'll put it in for you.
Okay.
Okay, put it in the chat or something, and we will, or email it to us, and we'll put it in the offer. Right? I'm right now. I'm sticking with people that I know. Like, for example, I would have felt a little embarrassed if I'd asked somebody that I didn't know and then made them go through what you've had to put up with.
Oh, I didn't have a sense of that between us at all, Metta, but I am going to go ahead out now, if that's okay with you.
Fine. It's very good to have had this little bit of a conversation. And you can also send me things about those 2 people that you recommend that we look at. And in the future, I may very well interview them for the noontime show. Okay. Thank you very much, Kathrin.
Thank you.
Again. Okay.
It was fun to talk with you. and we found a connection through Zach.
Bye-bye.
Bye.